When Cristiano Ronaldo decided to move to Saudi Arabia, it was supposed to mark the beginning of a new era. Not just for him, but for the entire Saudi Pro League. His arrival turned a regional competition into a global talking point almost overnight. Stadiums filled, broadcasters paid attention, and suddenly Saudi football was part of the worldwide conversation. From the beginning, Ronaldo was not presented as just another player. He was the symbol of the project, the face of the league's ambition, and the clearest sign that Saudi Arabia wanted to be taken seriously in global football. 2 years later, that project is facing one of its biggest internal crises, and at the center of it stands Ronaldo himself. What makes this situation so complex is that it did not begin with him. It began with Karim Benzema. When Benzema joined Al Ittihad in 2023, he was expected to be another pillar of the league's rise. A Ballon d'Or winner, a Champions League legend, and a player who, like Ronaldo, carried enormous prestige. On the pitch, he continued to perform well, but behind the scenes, his relationship with the club steadily deteriorated. Reports emerged of growing tensions, disagreements over his role, and frustration with the direction of the team. Eventually, things reached a breaking point when he was offered a new contract that focused almost entirely on image rights, without a guaranteed salary structure that reflected his status. For a player of Benzema's stature, that offer was seen as disrespectful. He felt undervalued, ignored, and pushed into a commercial role rather than treated as a sporting leader. His reaction was drastic. He refused to play, missed several matches, and made it clear that he wanted to leave. Almost immediately, Al Hilal emerged as the main destination, and that was when the situation started to take on a much wider meaning. Since 2023, 4 major Saudi clubs have been controlled by the Public Investment Fund: Al Nassr, Al Hilal, Al Ittihad, and Al Ahly. This centralized ownership model was designed to accelerate the league's growth. By pooling resources and coordinating strategy, Saudi officials hoped to raise standards quickly and attract elite talent. In many ways, it worked. The league became richer, more visible, and more competitive. But it also created suspicion. When Benzema appeared close to joining Al Hilal, many observers immediately questioned whether all clubs were being treated equally. Al Hilal were already dominant. They had strong squads, consistent results, and a growing reputation as the league's powerhouse. The idea that they could add Benzema on top of that made rivals uncomfortable, especially those who felt they were not receiving the same level of support. No one felt that more strongly than Cristiano Ronaldo. By that point, Ronaldo had been at Al Nassr for over 2 years. He was earning an extraordinary salary, reportedly around £500,000 per day. He had enormous influence within the club. Many staff members were personally close to him. He was consulted on major decisions. In theory, he had everything a superstar could want, except trophies. Despite his goals and his presence, Al Nassr had failed to dominate domestically. They had fallen short in league races. They had been overtaken by rivals who seemed better organized and better reinforced. For a player whose entire career has been built around winning, this was deeply frustrating. Ronaldo did not move to Saudi Arabia to wind down. He moved there believing he could still compete, still collect trophies, and still prove his relevance at the highest possible level. From his perspective, that ambition was being undermined. The moment that crystallized his anger was the transfer window in which Al Hilal secured Benzema, while Al Nassr added only a young Iraqi midfielder. At a time when the league title was finely balanced and margins were small, the contrast was striking. One rival strengthened with a global superstar. His own club made a modest addition. To Ronaldo, this felt like confirmation of everything he feared. He believed that Al Hilal were being prioritized. He believed that the centralized system was working in their favor. He believed that competing fairly had become impossible if rivals were reinforced more aggressively. The Benzema deal became a symbol of imbalance, even if the reality was more complicated. His response was unprecedented. In protest, Ronaldo refused to play in a league match against Al Riyadh despite being fully fit. He was not injured, he was not suspended, he was simply absent. The fact that he was left out of the squad confirmed that this was deliberate. It was, in effect, a strike. For Saudi officials, this was alarming. Ronaldo is not just a player in their system, he is one of its central pillars. When he plays, attendance rises, television ratings increase, international coverage expands. When he does not, interest visibly drops. His presence is still one of the league's main commercial assets. Seeing him publicly withdraw from competition sent the wrong message at a sensitive time. Senior figures reportedly contacted him directly and urged him to return. They warned that the situation was damaging the league's image. They expressed surprise at his behavior, especially given how involved he is in the club's internal structure. From their point of view, he was not an outsider being ignored. He was part of the inner circle. Ronaldo, however, did not see it that way. His anger is rooted in the belief that other PIF-backed clubs, especially Al Hilal, receive stronger backing. He feels that squad building at Al Nassr has not matched his ambitions. He feels that he has been asked to carry too much responsibility without sufficient support. He feels that his final years are being wasted in a project that lacks competitive balance. From his perspective, the issue is simple. If rivals are consistently strengthened with elite players while his own team is not, then winning becomes unrealistic. And if winning becomes unrealistic, then the entire purpose of his move is undermined. Saudi officials and analysts strongly dispute this narrative. They point out that Al Nassr have also spent enormous sums. They remind critics that Ronaldo himself is part of that spending. They highlight signings like Sadio Mane, Laporte, Brozovic, and others. They argue that Al Nassr have one of the most expensive and star-studded squads in Asia. From this angle, claims of neglect appear exaggerated. They also emphasize an important detail about the Benzema transfer. Much of the funding, they say, came through private investment rather than direct PIF involvement. In particular, they point to the growing influence of Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, who is close to completing a full takeover of Al Hilal. His financial backing gives the club greater flexibility and independence. This brings us to the deeper structural issue behind the crisis. Saudi football is in transition. Under Vision 2030, the long-term plan is to move clubs away from full state control toward private ownership. The idea is to create sustainable, competitive institutions that are less dependent on public funding. Al Hilal are leading this process. They are attracting major private investors. They are building commercial networks. They are gaining autonomy. Al Nassr, by contrast, remain heavily reliant on public funding. This creates an uneven landscape. Clubs with strong private backing can move faster, negotiate more freely, and take bigger risks. Clubs that depend on centralized structures move more slowly. For Ronaldo, this shift is deeply unsettling. It means that even within the same league, he is competing under different financial conditions. In effect, the playing field is changing beneath his feet. His contract situation adds another layer of uncertainty. He has around 18 months left on his deal, and it reportedly includes a release clause of around 50 million euros. At nearly 41 years old, it is unclear how many clubs would be willing to pay that fee purely for sporting reasons. At the same time, his global commercial value remains enormous. Few players in history can generate the attention he still commands. Recently, media outlets linked to his business interests have published stories suggesting that he is unhappy and considering leaving Saudi Arabia. Whether intentional or not, these reports increase pressure on officials. They create leverage. They remind everyone that Ronaldo still has options, even at this stage of his career. This raises the question of whether his protest was truly about refusing to play, or whether it was about sending a message. Many observers believe it was the latter. By withdrawing temporarily, Ronaldo forced the issue into the open. He made his dissatisfaction impossible to ignore. He reminded officials of his importance. He shifted the conversation from internal disputes to public debate. In that sense, the strike was a strategic move rather than an emotional outburst. With the transfer window now closed and limited alternatives available, Saudi officials appear confident that he will eventually return. Their message has reportedly been clear. He has made his point. Now he needs to refocus on football. Whether that will happen smoothly remains to be seen. What is clear is that this episode has exposed deeper tensions within the Saudi Pro League. Centralized ownership, uneven privatization, growing private power, and the influence of superstar players are colliding in unpredictable ways. The league is still young in its global ambitions. Its governance structures are still evolving. Its identity is still being shaped. Ronaldo's protest reflects not only personal frustration, but also these growing pains. He is a player who has always demanded the best environments. He has always pushed institutions to match his ambition. At Real Madrid, at Manchester United, at Juventus, he expected systems to revolve around winning. When they did not, conflict followed. Saudi Arabia is now experiencing that same dynamic. At the same time, the league cannot simply bend to one individual, no matter how famous he is. If it does, it undermines its own credibility. If it does not, it risks alienating its biggest star. Finding that balance is the central challenge. In the end, what began as a dispute over Benzema's contract has evolved into a crisis about governance, investment, and power. It has revealed the tensions between state control and private capital. It has highlighted the difficulties of managing superstars within developing systems. And it has shown that building a global football league is not just about money, but about structure, transparency, and trust. Cristiano Ronaldo remains the face of Saudi football. He remains its biggest attraction. He remains its most recognizable ambassador, but he is also now its most complicated problem. How this situation is resolved will say a great deal about where the Saudi Pro League is heading, and whether it can truly become a stable, competitive, and credible part of the global game. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. Leave in the comments what would you like me to talk about on the next video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Turn on the notification bell so you will never miss an upload. I'll see you in the next one.